The auction house smelled of sterilized cruelty and old machinery. Its metallic walls gleamed with programmed indifference, a cathedral of profit where lives were measured in credits and deformities. Rows of cages lined the vast chamber, each holding something someone once owned. Some of the occupants cowered. Others stared blankly, already hollowed out. The bidders sat above in climate-controlled balconies, viewing the misery below through glass, murmuring in disgust or intrigue. The auctioneer, a fleshy boardwalk with a voice like shredded cable, stood on the elevated stage and thumped a cane on the floor. A line of slaves shuffled forward one by one, described in numeric sequence, their flaws highlighted like livestock at market. Most were sold quickly. One had a unique pheromone output. Another had partial cybernetics. Anything that could be repurposed or exploited fetched a high price. Then came lot number 9432. She was small, thin, with pale green skin and faint silver stripes across her arms. Her eyes were too large for her face, and her posture was withdrawn, like someone accustomed to being forgotten. The data slate clipped to her cage labeled her as part Tari unverified hybrid, with a long list of negatives. Low aggression response, inconsistent obedience metrics, no known familial imprinting, no special features, no augmentations, no use, scrap, someone muttered from the bidder's gallery. The auctioneer's voice dropped, embarrassed. Lot number 9432. Female. No opening bid. He waited. Nothing. Any interest? 1 credit. Silence. She's barely more than biomass, scoffed a Yilger noble. Even the black market wouldn't bother. The auctioneer shifted nervously. Protocol demanded a chance to be purchased before deactivation. The countdown began on the hollow display. 20 seconds to disposal. The girl didn't move, didn't plead. She simply watched the numbers tick down. Then the atmosphere shifted. A low murmur rippled through the crowd. One of the guards at the lower entrance turned, then stepped aside. Someone was walking in, alone, tall, broad-shouldered, wrapped in a worn cloak. The crowd fell silent. A few backed away. The auctioneer paled. A human. Humans were rare in this quadrant, even more so in markets like these. No one knew exactly why they came. Their culture was erratic, violent, paradoxically idealistic. Their homeworld was a death world, gravity too strong, oxygen too volatile, wildlife too aggressive. Evolution had sculpted them into something unpredictable, dangerous, resilient. He walked forward without a word and stopped in front of lot number 9432's cage. The girl looked up slowly, uncertain whether to flinch or beg. His face was unreadable beneath the shadow of his hood. Then he raised one hand. A single credit blinked into the bid register. A single credit. A gasp rippled through the balcony. The auctioneer hesitated. "Honored guest, you surely jest. This lot." The human turned his head. The look he gave needed no translation. "Sold." The auctioneer choked. "Transfer initiated." The crowd erupted in disbelief. Some laughed. Others whispered of madness. Who wastes credits on nothing? What did the human see? No one knew, but no one challenged it. Lot number 9432 was released from her cage and handed over, her collar unlocked. She hesitated to step forward, legs shaking, every nerve waiting for pain. A command. A chain. "Come," the human said. It wasn't a command, just a direction. She followed. The vessel was unlike anything she expected. It was old, patched in strange places with materials not meant for spacefaring vessels. Human ships were notorious for violating engineering principles, yet still flying. Function through chaos. There was no crew, just him. The door closed behind her with a final hiss. No restraints. No holding cell. He led her through dim corridors to a small central hub. Food sat on a table. Real food. A cot was made in the corner. Clean. Another table had tools spread across it beside a half-disassembled panel. He pointed to a screen with a blinking translation interface. Use if needed. Then he turned and walked to the engine room. She waited. Time passed. Minutes. Hours. He didn't return. No commands. No punishments. Her body remained tense, expecting the violence that always came after such lulls. Eventually, hunger overrode habit. She approached the food cautiously, smelled it. It wasn't drugged. She ate, quickly but quietly, watching the door. Later, she explored the room. Nothing was locked. One drawer held old Earth relics. Pictures, a carved wooden token, a stone. Another drawer had energy cells and scrap wiring. The datapad was filled with notes in human script, logs, engineering records, annotated blueprints. She couldn't sleep. When he returned, he walked past her without a word and sat at the main console, began typing. She finally gathered the courage to speak. "What do you want from me?" He didn't look up. "Nothing." She stared. He added, "You're free now." The silence hit harder than any shout. She backed into a corner, confusion and fear tangled in her chest. No one said that. Not ever. Not in minute. She watched him for days. Every motion he made was deliberate, precise, and yet casual. He repaired parts that didn't seem broken. He ran diagnostics without cursing. He slept little. When he did, it was in a chair near the engine core, arms crossed, ready to move. He never struck her, never yelled, never asked her to serve. Eventually, she began placing tools in the correct places, cleaning dust from vents, small things. He didn't comment, but she noticed he stopped locking the cabinet. She tested the limits. He never stopped her. One day, a diagnostic alert beeped while he was below deck. She instinctively ran to the console and corrected the anomaly. Seconds later, he appeared, saw the cleared alert, and nodded once. Nothing more. She kept helping. Later, she found an old tool schematic, modified it, showed him. He stared at it for a while, then used it. The first time she laughed was accidental. A coolant pipe burst overhead, dousing the console. The look on his face was so shocked, so utterly nonplussed, that she couldn't stop herself. The laugh escaped like breath from lungs too long collapsed. He looked at her and smiled. That night, she couldn't sleep again. Memories of metal floors and pain flared behind her eyes. She crawled under a maintenance panel and curled up, shivering. He found her there hours later, sat on the floor nearby, said nothing. She finally whispered, "I didn't have a name." He thought for a long time. "Vera," he said, "means truth." She repeated it quietly, then louder. "Vera." It felt strange and new, like skin that finally fit. They docked at a fringe station for repairs and fuel. He handled the logistics, but some local enforcers noticed her, questioned her status. "She's property," one growled. "She's not," the human said, voice flat. "You can't just free." He held up an ID, Earth Diplomatic Corps. Earth recognizes sentience. She's a sovereign citizen under Terran law. They hesitated, backed off, but someone had taken note. As they left, eyes followed them. Communications were sent, protocols activated. Back on the ship, she watched him prep for jump. Finally, she asked, "Why me?" He didn't answer directly, just said, "Everyone else looked away. I didn't." Vera's hands no longer trembled when she worked. Her fingers moved with certainty, guided by logic and instinct. She could now diagnose subsystem errors faster than the ship's AI. It had only taken her 3 months to become indispensable, though the human never said it outright. He didn't need to. The way he deferred to her, the trust implicit in shared silence, said everything. But change never came without consequence. The shadow of the auction house followed them. Word of the human who purchased useless stock spread. Sectors whispered, not of compassion, but suspicion. Empires built on hierarchy did not tolerate disruption, especially not by a human who valued the worthless. They stopped at a mid-tier trade station in the outer band of the Rilo Nebula to exchange components. Vera, now dressed in plain but functional gear, moved confidently through the crowded corridors. When a group of dock workers barked at her to step aside, she stared them down. They stepped around. The human watched from a distance, noting the change. She no longer hunched or avoided eye contact. She navigated the world with purpose. But trouble was coming. It began with a coded message routed through their ship's relay. The encryption was old, Terran military grade. Only humans used that pattern. The message was short. You're being watched. They want her back. He showed it to her. She read it twice. Why? She asked. Not sure yet, he replied. But you embarrass someone. Their next jumps were calculated with military precision. Dead zones. Relay gaps. Vera began plotting them herself. The escape wasn't out of fear. It was strategic. Her life had value now. That changed the rules. During one stop at an abandoned survey platform, she found a data cache buried beneath old mining logs. Scrubbing through it, she discovered slave registry codes. Her code among them. Not just her. Thousands. Evidence of trafficking ring linked to multiple species. Some even tied to the Interstellar Council. She called him over. He read the file slowly. That's why they want you back. This proves you weren't stray salvage. You're classified. They didn't just lose you. They lost control of their data trail. What do we do? She asked. He tapped the screen. We show someone who'll care. Getting that data to the right eyes required going to the last place they wanted to return. Regulated space. They couldn't go directly to Earth. It would take too long and risk diplomatic backlash. But the humans' first relief network had outposts. Their destination, Omega Reach Station. The journey took them through contested zones. One sector was under temporary blockade by the Verati Combine. To pass unnoticed, Vera hotwired an old stealth module from scavenged parts and rewrote the ship's thermal signature manually. They slipped past a picket line without detection. She grinned. He nodded. A day later, a minefield nearly cost them the ship. It wasn't marked. She rerouted power through non-standard channels to maintain hull integrity, while he disarmed the proximity mines. They never discussed fear. There was no time. Once docked at Omega Reach, they blended in. The human made contact with an old ally, Captain Molina, retired Terran Fleet officer turned whistleblower. Molina was older, with metal-reinforced knees and a scar across one eye. You brought proof? She asked. Vera handed her a drive. Molina scanned the contents and swore. This could trigger investigations across 6 empires. Who else has seen this? Only us, the human said. We need to get ahead of it. Molina nodded. I'll send it to Earth Command and the Core Free Systems Council. But once this goes out, they'll come. They already are, Vera said. Molina studied her. You were part of this? I was nothing, she replied. Until he bought me. Molina's eyes flicked to the human. And now I'm not afraid. The next day, Omega Reach was attacked. Not by pirates. Not even by bounty agents. This was a Black Flag operation. Strike units bearing no insignia, equipped with suppression tech too expensive for freelancers. The human woke first. Instinct. He grabbed his rifle, tossed Vera a compact EMP disruptor, and kicked open the door. The corridors were already under fire. Security was being overwhelmed. Vera didn't hesitate. She followed him through the smoke and alarms, weapon steady. They fought with practiced precision. She shut down 2 drone clusters with localized pulses. He covered civilians with suppressive fire, dragging a child out of a collapsed stairwell. No wasted motion. Reaching the data core, Vera rigged an emergency transmission, sending everything to 25 independent networks, she told him. Even if we die, they can't erase it. Good, he said. Now, let's not die. They fought their way to the dock. Molina was already there, bloodied but alive. Go, she yelled. I'll hold them. Vera paused. The human didn't. Molina raised her rifle and gave a final salute. They boarded and launched. Behind them, Omega Reach burned. The news broke across the networks within hours. Independent media hailed Vera as the whistleblower who exposed one of the largest trafficking conspiracies in known space. Most didn't mention her species. Some didn't even mention she was formerly enslaved. The human never gave interviews. When asked, he simply said, she saved herself. I just opened the door. They became fugitives. Not for crimes, but because too many powerful entities fear the example they set. They moved constantly, sometimes from sector to sector, sometimes in disguise. Vera learned how to reprogram identification tags, fabricate mission orders, and falsify hull signatures. She kept a low profile, but everywhere they went, someone had heard the story. The girl no one wanted who helped break an empire. Other former slaves reached out, some secretly, others more boldly. They shared stories, memories, coordinates of hidden camps. Vera started mapping them, documenting names, building a picture of the invisible web that supported the entire operation. She became the nexus. One day, she found an encrypted message addressed specifically to her. No name, just a call sign, to the one who changed everything. It was from inside the council itself, a sympathizer. They had allies. That night, she sat across from the human at their modest mess table. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. He raised an eyebrow. "Buying me? No. Even with all this?" She gestured to the datapads, warnings, and threat pings. "Especially with all this." Silence settled. Not heavy, just real. Vera knew they were still hunted. She knew every day brought new risks. But she also knew something else. She was becoming dangerous, not with weapons, not just with tactics, but with truth, with the ability to dismantle systems with evidence, courage, and a voice no longer trembling. The next time they docked, she gave the orders. He followed, not because he had to, because he knew the time had come. She was no longer just a girl from the cage. She was the storm coming for those who built the cages. And this time, they have to look her in the eyes. Because humans didn't look away, and neither did she. The encrypted contact from within the Interstellar Council had offered more than support. It included a location, Vault Meridian, deep within Zorthan control space. According to the files, it was one of several central data banks used to store compromised records, hidden away from regular channels. If Vera could access it, she could expose the full scale of the conspiracy. Names, transactions, signatures. Vera and the human planned for 12 days. They plotted the trajectory with overlapping stealth routes, disguised the ship as a medical transport, and procured deep cycle signal dampeners. It wasn't a military strike. It was an infiltration designed around intelligence and subversion, and it had to work. There would be no second attempt. Inside Zorthan space, checkpoints were frequent, their forged credentials passed. Vera monitored all scans. Her modifications worked. They reached the edge of the Meridian Vault with 0 alerts. The vault itself orbited a gas giant, locked in a decaying orbit. Half its outer defenses had corroded, giving the illusion of abandonment. But Vera's scan showed recent heat signatures and controlled traffic routes. The deception was mutual. She approved. They docked through a blind spot in the orbital pattern, using manual guidance. Vera handled all security overrides, bypassing multi-layered authentication systems with code fragments embedded in the files from the council contact. She moved like someone born to this. The human covered her from behind, weapons ready, but never needing to speak. Inside the vault, the system was structured like a memory palace, intuitive only to those who had built it. Vera navigated by pattern recognition. She found the registry cluster within minutes. What she discovered wasn't just an archive. It was an active control center, a hub for the management of subsentient labor across a dozen star systems. And the Central Authority had ties to top-level representatives in at least 3 dominant species. She copied everything. Then she added a trigger. If accessed by unauthorized personnel, the data would fragment and distribute across neutral beacons throughout galactic space. A last safeguard. They exited undetected. The data went live 2 days later. The galactic reaction was chaos. Governments denied involvement. Rebellions erupted on labor worlds. Thousands of former slaves, inspired by Vera's original leak, coordinated protests, sabotage, and information campaigns. The idea of ownership itself was collapsing in parts of the galaxy. People no longer wanted reform. They wanted retribution. Vera became the icon of a movement she had never asked to lead, but she did not step back. She reorganized her ship into a mobile relay hub, helping route verified reports from whistleblowers to independent networks. Every time she received confirmation of a freed labor camp or collapsed trafficking route, she logged it with precision. The tally grew. But victories bred enemies. The Council declared her a security threat. The Zorthan Directorate placed a death bounty on her and the human. An anonymous mercenary network tripled the bounty and began broadcasting their coordinates in real time, based on last known positions. The human shrugged. Vera changed their ship's transponder codes again. One night, while reviewing intercepted transmissions, Vera found a coded message referencing a new containment unit, one built specifically for her, not for capture, for public execution. It would be broadcast to warn others. She stared at the screen for a long time before turning to him. They don't want me erased. They want me broken. They won't get it, he said. No, but they'll keep trying. And they did. Their next 3 jumps were intercepted. Each time, they barely escaped. Once, Vera had to physically reroute life support while steering manually. Another time, she disabled a boarding party using nothing but sound wave distortion and a modified maintenance drone. Her solutions became stranger, sharper, like her mind had adapted to chaos. They never lost. Eventually, they reach a sector outside the central trade routes known as the Fringe Reef. There, among outposts and scrap moons, she met a collective of technologists, ex-military defectors, and information rebels. They called themselves the Fracture. They've been watching. We want to help, their speaker said. I don't want help, Vera replied. I want allies. She got them. With Fracture support, she launched what became known as the Signal Cascade, a synchronized information event that targeted every public and shadow network at once, releasing real-time proof of ongoing slave operations, government involvement, and complicit species councils. The response was nuclear. Several trade consortiums collapsed within days. Entire interspecies agreements unraveled. Embassies closed. Internal coups followed. The information could not be refuted. It was too massive, too raw. But the most significant shift wasn't political. It was personal. Vera received thousands of messages, most encrypted, some from deep within hostile space. Messages from people who had once been sold, silenced, discarded. Now they were watching her, learning, rising. The humans saw it too. You started something no one can stop now, he said. I didn't want this, she answered. No, but you were ready for it. Then came the ultimatum. The Interstellar Council issued a formal statement. Surrender or be hunted to extinction. Her name was spoken in every chamber. They labeled her a war criminal, an insurrectionist, a terrorist. The humans smirked. They're afraid of you. Good, Vera said. Now let's finish this. They targeted the core broadcast array. It was a central communication node used by the Council to issue official declarations, control state narratives, and suppress civilian dissent. Accessing it was suicidal. Even the Fracture advised against it. She went anyway. With only the human and 2 Fracture specialists, Vera breached the outer defense ring using a modified supply vessel. Once inside the communication tunnels, she uploaded a final protocol, a direct neural broadcast. Not data, not files. Her own voice. It transmitted everywhere. She didn't read from a script. She spoke simply. They took my name, my future, my will. Then they sold me, told me I was worth nothing, said I would die unknown. But I lived, and I learned, and I remembered. I'm not asking for your pity. I'm not asking for revenge. I'm giving you a choice. Look away, or stand up. If they did it to me, they can do it to you. This ends now. Choose. The message echoed across every major station, every vessel, every network system. Even encrypted military channels couldn't block it. Revolts erupted instantly. Labor camps were stormed. Council facilities were seized. Leaders resigned, fled, or were captured by their own citizens. Vera's face became a symbol etched into walls, screens, even starships. Not of vengeance, but of refusal, of never being silent again. The Council fell.